Arionne Curry once again found herself in the middle of another storm. What started as a simple Instagram live turned into a full-blown online debate about respect, boundaries, and obsession. It's like every time Arionne opens that camera, she manages to shake up social media. And this time, she went even further than before. She started off acting like she was just having fun, talking about her new slang, her hair, and how she's that girl. But as the conversation went on, the energy shifted. What began as a carefree chat turned into something sharp and messy, especially when she crossed a line that should never be crossed, bringing up Melody Shari's kids. Now, the live started off light. Arionne was sitting there with her usual confidence, tossing her hair, talking about how she's got this new phrase she came up with, coochie is hoe. She laughed about it like it was the next big thing, something she wanted to own as part of her new image. But to many people watching, it didn't sound empowering or funny. It sounded off. Like someone trying too hard to make noise so people wouldn't notice the silence behind the camera. The silence of a story that's been dragging on for years. People who followed her for a while know that when Arionne says she's living her best life, it usually means she's about to address something or someone indirectly. As she kept talking, the focus shifted to her looks. She proudly said she's wearing her real hair, her real lashes, no wigs, no extensions, just her natural self. And while there's nothing wrong with a woman being proud of her natural beauty, the tone was different. It wasn't about confidence. It was about comparison. The words were filled with a certain shade, a quiet dig that didn't have to be said out loud. Because every time Arionne talks about her hair being real, people instantly think she's throwing shots at Melody Shari. And that's exactly what this felt like again. She said things like, "I don't need clip-ins or wigs," smiling into the camera, brushing her hair, and making sure her viewers saw every strand. It wasn't just about her hair. It was about trying to show she's somehow better, more authentic, more natural. But the truth is, nobody was comparing until she brought it up. That's the pattern. Every time she says she's unbothered, her words tell the opposite story. It's like she's trying to win a game that ended years ago, and as she went on, the conversation became even more uncomfortable. Arionne started talking about how Martell used to compliment her hair, saying he liked how thick it was, how real it was. And that's when people realized this live wasn't just about hair. It was about holding on to the crumbs of validation that Martell Holt used to give her. The same Martell who's now trying to rebuild his image as a family man, co-parenting with Melody and focusing on his children. But in that live, it felt like Arionne was still stuck in that same place. Still needing to remind the world that Martell once liked her, that she once mattered in his story. And that's what made so many viewers sad. Because you could hear it in her voice, she's still carrying pain that she tries to cover with confidence. The louder she gets, the more it shows that she's not as healed as she wants people to think. At one point, she shifted gears and started talking about cooking, barbecue chicken, cabbage, and baked beans. And y'all, social media had a field day with that. People couldn't believe the combination. But it wasn't just the food people were laughing about. It was how Arionne tried to turn that simple dinner into a symbol of her being domestic, happy, and doing well. But somehow, it came off awkward. Like she was trying too hard to prove she's living her best life when everything about her tone said otherwise. Every time she tries to show she's thriving, the internet picks up on the tension behind her smile. It's like she's fighting an invisible battle, one that's not really with other people, but within herself. And instead of finding peace, she ends up saying things that cause more drama. Then came the part that had everyone talking, her comments about Melody and Martell's kids. That's where she truly crossed the line. She started comparing how she talks to her own son versus how she interacts with Martell's children. She said, "Why give Mel's kids food that yours wouldn't eat?" And in that moment, everything changed. The internet exploded. People were furious. Because no matter what's gone down between the adults, bringing the kids into it is something you just don't do. The tone in her voice changed completely. When she talked about her son, she was soft, sweet, and warm. But when she mentioned Melody's kids, the warmth disappeared. She sounded annoyed, cold, almost dismissive. Like she was tired of being reminded of them. And that's when people realized this wasn't about kids or food, it was about jealousy and resentment. About the life that she feels she should have had, but never got, and all while she was talking, Martell Holt was in the background, calm and quiet. He was trying to keep things light, talking about bikes, cars, and normal stuff with the kids. But the energy between them was strange. You could tell he just wanted to keep the peace. He wasn't engaging in the drama. He wasn't feeding into her attitude. He was just trying to stay cool, maybe even distract himself from how messy things were getting. Arionne kept trying to make it look like they were this happy little family, but the vibe didn't lie. It felt forced. Martell seemed distant, like he was just there to keep things from exploding. Meanwhile, she kept talking like she had something to prove, still trying to show that she mattered in his world. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, she went into another rant that shocked everyone. She started talking about bastard kids. Her words came out defensive, harsh, and completely tone-deaf. She said, if your kid is out of wedlock, you can't be mad if someone calls your kid a bastard. And right there, the internet stopped. People couldn't believe what they were hearing. It wasn't just a random statement. It hit too close to home. Because everyone knows Arionne herself had a child with a married man, Martell Holt. So, when she said that, it felt like she was trying to justify her own choices by tearing other people down. Instead of showing growth or self-awareness, she doubled down on the bitterness. And it came off as sad more than anything. You could tell she wanted to sound strong, like she didn't care what people thought, but her words gave away how deeply she still does. That's the thing about pain. You can try to hide it behind jokes, makeup, and slang, but it always finds a way out, and when you compare her energy to Melody's, the difference is clear. Melody went through hell, the cheating, the public embarrassment, the heartbreak, but she transformed all that pain into power. She built businesses, released music, and turned her name into a brand. She's focused on her kids, her growth, and her peace. She doesn't need to get online and prove she's happy. Her actions speak for her. Meanwhile, Arionne is still on live, defending her choices and creating new slang as if that's going to erase what people already know. It's almost like she's fighting the ghosts of her past, ghosts she refuses to let go of. And that's what makes watching her so difficult. Because deep down, you can tell she's still hurting. At one point in the live, she tried to switch gears again. She said she wanted to talk about motivational things, about positivity. But by then, the tone had already been set. The words bastard kids and real hair had already made their mark. The damage was done. No matter how many smiles she forced afterward, people couldn't forget what they heard. As the live went on, Martell tried to change the topic, bringing up the kids' tennis games. The tone shifted for a moment. You could hear him talking to the children, being a dad, laughing lightly. Melody's kids were mentioned again, but this time in a warm, innocent way. They were just being kids. Playing, learning, growing. And it showed such a difference between how Melody handles her world and how Arionne does. Even through the phone, you could hear the peace in Melody's home videos, calm, structured, focused on love and growth. Meanwhile, Arionne's live was filled with tension, over-talking, and defense. Two completely different worlds, both connected by one man who's still trying to figure out his own path. Later in the live, things took a more awkward turn when the topic of work came up. Arionne started talking about her nursing journey, how she's in school, how she's working toward her LPN and RN licenses. She said she's proud to be almost done and that she doesn't currently have a job. Martell chimed in, saying she hasn't worked in 4 years. He joked about how much she used to make, saying it wasn't worth it for her to work $14 or $15 an hour. The exchange between them was strange. On one hand, it sounded playful. On the other, it showed the complicated dynamic they still share. She asked him, "Do you want me to get a job, Martell?" And he said, "No, not unless it's worth it." Then he laughed, saying, "Long as it's not $14 an hour." But the way they went back and forth made people uncomfortable. It was like watching two people who are stuck in a loop, the same arguments, the same defensiveness, the same little digs disguised as jokes. Arionne tried to sound light-hearted, but there was tension underneath. Especially when Martell mentioned nurses being cheaters. That one line sent the chat into chaos. He said it jokingly, but everyone caught the shade. Arionne quickly clapped back, saying, "That doesn't mean I'm one." The back and forth showed just how messy things still are between them. No matter how much they try to act like everything's okay, the cracks always show. By this point, the live had turned from a casual chat into a window into their reality, a reality that still revolves around old wounds, jealousy, and unhealed issues. Martell looked tired of explaining. Arionne looked like she was performing. And the whole time, the viewers were torn between shaking their heads and feeling sorry for her, because beneath all the attitude and defensiveness, you can still see the same woman who got caught up in a relationship that stole her peace. A woman who thought she was winning a man, only to lose herself in the process. When the live finally began to slow down, you could hear her voice soften. She started talking about her graduation, her plans, her dreams. For a moment, it felt peaceful, like the version of Arionne that could have been. A woman focused on her goals, her son, and her future. But that moment didn't last long, because her earlier words overshadowed everything. That's the thing about crossing the line. Once you say certain things, it's hard to walk them back. Especially when it comes to kids. Melody's children didn't ask to be a part of this drama. They didn't ask for their mother's name to be dragged or for old wounds to be reopened. But every time Arionne goes live, she stirs up those feelings again. And that's why the public reaction was so harsh. Fans flooded social media saying she went too far. Many said it's time for her to let go and stop mentioning Melody or her family. Because at this point, it's not just messy, it's toxic. Others pointed out that every time she does something like this, it only makes Melody look stronger, and maybe that's the biggest irony of it all. Every time Arionne tries to shade Melody, it ends up highlighting the exact difference between them. Melody keeps growing, keeps glowing, keeps building her brand while staying out of the mess. Arionne, on the other hand, keeps going live, keeps reacting, keeps feeding the cycle that holds her back. If she truly wants to be that girl, it's not going to come from new slang words or hair talk. It's going to come from growth, from letting go of the bitterness and truly finding peace. Because as long as she keeps comparing, she'll never feel content. People are tired of seeing the same story play out. The same anger, the same shade, the same "I don't care" speech that always ends with her proving that she does. At this point, what viewers want to see is change. They want to see her rise above it, to finally stop giving her energy to old drama and start building something real for herself. But until that happens, the internet will keep watching, not because they love the drama, but because they're waiting to see if she'll ever break free from it. And that's the sad part, because Arionne has potential. She's smart, she's in school, she's capable. But her need to prove something to people who've already moved on keeps her trapped in the same narrative. Meanwhile, Melody is out there focusing on her kids, her business, and her peace. Martell is trying to co-parent and rebuild what's left of his public image. But Arionne, she's still stuck in the same cycle, trying to convince the world that she's unbothered while proving over and over that she is. And as long as she keeps crossing lines like this, bringing up children, comparing households, and trying to tear others down to lift herself up, she's only going to keep pushing people away. Because you can't build peace on top of pettiness. You can't claim confidence while constantly seeking validation. So, at the end of the day, this live wasn't just another messy moment. It was a mirror. A reflection of where she really is, still fighting old battles, still trying to prove her worth, still holding on to the past. And until she lets that go, the same drama will keep repeating. The world has moved on. Melody has moved on. Even Martell, in his own way, is trying to move forward. But Arionne? She's still stuck trying to win a game that ended years ago, and that's why her name stays in the blogs. Because every time she opens that camera, she gives people another reason to talk, not about her growth, not about her success, but about her pain disguised as pride. Maybe one day she'll finally understand that being that girl doesn't come from shade or validation. It comes from healing. From peace. From letting go of the need to compete with people who aren't even playing the same game anymore.